Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan Metal video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the no item run against Reich Pilaf and basically how you can get the victory against him without using any items. Now Emperor Pilaf, or Reich Pilaf as they have him stated in game, is a very interesting boss. There's quite a few different mechanics that you need to consider when you're taking him on. He does a 1.2 million super. He has 200 million defense, damage reduction of 65%, and he has 300 million health. So he's by no means a easy feat to beat. He nullifies super attack ceiling effects, grants immunity to being stunned, disables attack reduction, enemy receives 100,000 damage per int or AGL key sphere obtained. You will not be KO'd due to receiving this damage, and he changes strength to int key spheres. So there's a lot of factors that you have to kind of consider when you're taking him on, and one of the most major factors that you have to consider is the fact that he's going to be creating key spheres that are essentially going to be damaging you. So even though 1.2 million nowadays as a super is not something major, the difficulty that players will face is in controlling taking any potential damage from that whilst maintaining their health levels. Now you can counteract this mechanic in two specific ways. The first is through orb changing. By changing the orbs he changes, you in theory remove a lot of his threat. So for example, you have characters that change int key spheres and AGL key spheres into non-int and non-AGL key spheres, then you're more than likely going to have a pretty good time. Vice versa, if you decide to rather skip that and instead look into potentially healing your characters, then this will be something that is incredibly useful as well. There are certain characters that can heal you quite a lot. Int Broly is pretty good at healing. Then you have int Buhan, who is a great healing option. So all of a sudden you have units that can kind of restore your health, whilst also obviously eliminating some of those orbs. Now the important thing is that any health restoration, whether it's from picking up an orb and just your raw defense, or whether it's a passive from a character like 15,000 per orb like we have with Buhan, the healing from orbs will kick in after the damage from the orbs has taken place. So especially with like Buhan, it's a great way to pick up the orbs, heal up all the damage you took picking them up, and then moving on. It is something you obviously need to consider. With that being said, honestly speaking, I would say fundamentally, it's probably around about, I would say spot on. This team build. It's a very nice one, uncontrollable power. We have some really strong units. We've got int Janemba, amazing. We've got int Buhan, amazing damage. We've got the physical Janemba, amazingly tanky. Physical Buhan, a great pairing partner for him, who also provides healing from his own passive alongside Janembas. And then we have the tech Janemba, who recently got his EZA, and I thought would just be really fun to kind of implement in this team. We then also obviously have two Brolys, which provide their own really solid abilities, mainly ranging from their active skills, which obviously triggers some huge, very important passives for us, and obviously give us some extra damage. And then we also obviously have Buhan, who does some pretty crazy damage. I would say, rotations-wise, you're probably looking at the int Buhan and the int Janemba, and I'd say the physical Janemba and the tech Janemba. At least that's what I ran, but I mean you could inverse that as well. Probably want to float the Buhan or pair him up with Super Janemba, it's entirely up to you. And then you also want to obviously have the Brolys float and just kind of do their thing. That one I'm fairly more confident about than maybe some of the others, because I do think, functionality wise, probably want to keep the Brolys floating just to make your life a little bit easier. Now with that said, I would say that this team handles this very, very well. You obviously are at a risk at some times because we don't have orb changes, so we can potentially pick up some really big orbs. Buhan also doesn't necessarily help too much with that because of how his orb changing works, but his healing after the fact of picking up the orbs is generally what makes him so powerful and makes it so that we don't really feel the pain of facing Emperor Pilaf. Now 300 million is not a small token of health. In fact, it's a fairly large chunk of health, so it's not like you can just work your way through it very easily. So I don't really judge players if they find this fight a little bit long. 300 million isn't just a rock up and delete the boss in about 30 seconds. It actually is a considered level of damage that players may have to do to get through. So that's why we need big hitters like Buhan. He's huge for doing damage, as well as the Tech Janemba. I transformed as soon as I could because, like I said, I needed that extra damage. But all in all, it was a fairly considered no-item run. I definitely think it was a lot of fun without necessarily being overtly challenging. I think Emperor Pilaf prevents some very interesting mechanical things to kind of hurdle over, but from a raw stat point of view, it's not like he hits so hard that you feel it all over the place. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Bye.